Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. To support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys, head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds.
Knocking balls, Tom. Knocking balls.
Time to start our underground pool tournament in our parents' house.
Holy shit.
This is the most parents' house I have seen since the movies I made with my friends in high school where we filmed in our parents' house.
I expected a mom to come downstairs like, what are you kids doing?
A dad is in the film.
Oh, yes. Listen. Hey, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
My name is David Bell.
My name is Tom Ryman.
And we just watched Behind the Nine.
Behind the Nine.
Get it today on Tubi.
On Tubi and on YouTube.
For free.
In its entirety. With no one has deigned to make a copyright strike against it.
This movie was abandoned.
Unbelievable. I counted a dozen ways for things to go wrong, but I never thought of this. No way.
All right. Well, first of all, big thank you to our Patreon producer. Why don't you take a flying fuck at the moon?
At the moon!
Yeah. Thank you so much for...
This film needs to take a flying fuck at the moon.
I have questions for you, our Patreon producer, such as why and how did you find this movie? I hope you're not involved in the movie.
I suspect they might be. I mean, I'm sorry if you are.
Yeah, I'm just going to say this right now. If you're involved with the movie, you probably shouldn't listen to this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Or if you're involved in the movie and you know what it is, if you're not... Like, if you're like, man, that was embarrassing. Because here's what I'll say before going into this movie.
We should explain what it is, too, but yeah.
Yes. Well, I just want to say before we start making fun of this movie, I could have made a movie like this at one point in my life. So, like, that is to say...
movies like this.
Yeah. I could have worked on a movie like this. So this is a movie from 2003. And it is a indie pool tournament film. I was in film school in, I believe, 2004 or 5. That's why I mean brag. Like when I saw this movie in the day, I like checked to see where it was made because I was like, I hope I don't know anybody who's involved with this. This is it is a movie in that it is available like a movie. It has an IMDb page. The reviews have noted that they rented the movie before in the past. I believe it's out of Atlanta. It is. So let's try to figure out the plot.
Well, it's very much one of those Tarantino Guy Ritchie clones that were coming out in the mid late 90s, early mid aughts.
I want to start with that because I was in film school.
More Guy Ritchie.
Yeah, but it definitely, I was in film school, like I said, in the early, when this movie came out. And boy, it gave me flashbacks because there'd be so many students who'd be like, you want to help out on my movie I'm making? And there was always a Tarantino trunk shot. It was always about crime gone wrong. It was always narrated of like, this is the kind of guy I am. And this all, it's happened in one night and it all went wrong.
Right.
This is a clone of a million film student movies.
Yeah. It's everyone who saw Snatch and then went and tried to make their own version of it. Basically, it's not quite that, but it is one of those crime movies that just thinks its writing is very, very clever. Like,
Yes.
so they have the narrators say these weird turns of phrases, and they do they try to have every character be like quirky. It's like this broad cast of characters, and like they do a freeze frame on like a dossier to introduce you to each character. It's every cliche you know from this genre.
Yes, and we're gonna get into what makes this unique, but like it's well, first of all, it wants to do every cliche. I will say it does it poorly. They have a part where they're talking about the bouncer, and he's like, he doesn't start fights, big pause. He finishes it. And it's like, did you think that was a really clever line?
Yeah.
Because that is a saying. You're just doing a saying.
Yeah.
It's a lot of that where like the clever dialogue isn't clever. And everybody's just sort of racist and homophobic because it's edgy.
Right. There's so many. This was a fucking problem. All right. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Let's start. First things first, let's explain what this movie is about.
Okay. So
I think I know if you are unsure.
I can give the setup, and then you're gonna have to tell me what happens in the middle because it was really hard.
Gotcha.
It is about a man who's supposed to be a very serious man. He says at the beginning, like, what is it? I have three loves. It's statistics, baseball,
and billiards.
And billiards, and it's like, wow, so you could just say I'm a boring white guy.
Yeah. So you're Nate Silver.
Yeah, statistics, baseball, and pool is what he says.
Mm-hmm.
And he's running this $1 million tournament. He gets $500,000. The winner gets $500,000. It is a tournament of 200 people. Did you catch that, Tom?
Yeah,
200 people. And he is running the show. And then the movie proceeds to be just that tournament. He has his love.
The end of it. It's the finals. It's like the finals.
It's the last
6 or 7 players. Yeah.
And they are all, it felt like it was just vignettes. It was supposed to be at least. It's just conversations people are having.
Yeah.
And then at the end, the money is like one guy kills himself, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
There's just a series of vignettes. And then at the end, his girlfriend steals the money and is killed. And then a guy doing a really bad mobster impression wins. And that's the movie, right?
Yep.
Okay. So there's really, I didn't miss anything, huh?
Nope.
There's no okay. Because it did feel like it was trying to be Tarantino in that one of the things I think film students didn't understand about Tarantino or like Kevin Smith or any movie where it's like, it's just a slice of life. People talking, hanging out.
There is a bit of Kevin Smith in here because this movie really is trying to impress you with its writing, specifically its dialogue.
And the thing this movie and a lot of film students didn't understand is like, that doesn't mean there isn't a plot. Things have to like kind of progress or mean something, or characters have to have arcs. And that's not really this movie's deal.
One character has an arc in this film, and that's the guy that kills himself. But yeah.
Yes. As we alluded to, okay. You got to make this movie, right? You're making a movie about a pool tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Where would you set that movie, Tom?
Probably in a pool hall.
Yeah. Or at least a dive bar.
Or at least a bar or someplace. Like, for this, it's supposed to be super underground, right? Which makes me question how the fuck he has 200 players each year. Like, how do you keep that? And where are they holding these events? Like, I mean, they do have this subplot where he pays the sheriff every year to sort of, continue running this game. And he has some connection with the sheriff. I forget. Like, he dated it after his dad died. The sheriff dated his mom for a while or some shit. And he's like not dating the sheriff. The sheriff's daughter is there, but I don't understand what her character's point was.
Right. I don't. Who can say? I think it's just to connect it. All the women make out with each other. There's a reason I don't feel like.
Dave.
Yeah. There's a reason I don't feel like I have to be nice to this film because this film wasn't nice to me. It's like Cinemax without nudity, where just like every woman makes out with each other. Every guy is dropping just the most homophobic and racist things.
Just casual racism and homophobia, yeah. That reminded me of Pool Hall Junkies, which has a lot of connective tissue with this movie. It's a movie we reviewed a few years back, but it's also sort of crime, very independent Not as independent as this, but a very independent crime drama about a pool hall guy, and it just begins with a white dude saying the N-word over and over again. There's no white guys say the N-word in this, but it gets close. They say some other really shitty racist things, and it's just like there was this period in the aughts where like white dudes trying to be edgy were obsessed with this shit.
Yes.
Like trying to push this envelope. It was it was embarrassing at the time, but looking back on it, it's like so fucking embarrassing and awful.
It really is.
Yeah.
And then the film school aspect where it's like, God damn, because Pool Hall Junkies at least had more of a budget.
Christopher
I'm glad
Walken
you brought
in
that
it.
up. Yeah. Glad you brought that up, because the question we asked before we started recording is like, why are pool movies so often bad, and what makes a good one good? Because we do have some great movies. The Hustler, The Color of Money.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. Maybe there are others that I don't think of. And I think it comes down to this, is pool movies are good if the person making it recognizes that pool isn't that cool. Because The Hustler and The Color of Money is sort of about these people in their rock bottom.
It's about being a scumbag, like being a rock bottom scumbag. Like they're treating pool, like underground pool in this movie, like underground high stakes poker.
Right.
And it just ain't it, man. And
it's not that cool.
Yeah.
Like the idea of like, oh, I know a bit of pool. It's like, yes, you and everybody knows how to play pool. It's a game. It's fine. Yes, people gamble on it. Yes, they're good pool players.
And there's tournaments and lots of money gets thrown around, but it just doesn't. There's something grimier about pool than poker, you know. So it feels. I agree. I think you do need to sort of approach it from like, it's not like the gentleman's gamble. It's not like James Bond doesn't shoot pool.
Right. Now, I want to paint a picture for you, Tom, of a movie that could have happened based off this premise. Imagine, first of all, they could shoot it in an actual bar.
Yeah.
And imagine a tournament that is, yes, people are trying to steal the money. There's betrayal. People are killing themselves when they lose. Imagine all that. But what if the prize money was like 30 grand? And the idea was these people are rock bottom. That's how you make a movie like this. You make the problem is, again, this person wants to be cool. This movie is made off of the idea of like, we want this to be cool. And if you had gone the other way with it and been like, they're not even fighting over a lot of money, it's just people who are at the end of their rope, who are just desperate. Because there's a problem with this movie, a few problems. The big problem is they don't have the budget to make the movie. Right.
So it is no fooling, made entirely inside a suburban home.
That's what we've been sort of circling around.
Mm-hmm.
This is shot in a house that is not worth $1 million. The idea, they start with this, again, their eyes are bigger than the stomach. They want it to be cool. So they're like, prize money is $1 million. And it's like, I'm sorry, the house you're in is
not worth $1 million. Yeah. Again, I just want to pause and hit that a little, just hit it one more time. This takes place entirely within a suburban house.
But the thing that makes it
a suburban house. Yeah, we never even go outside.
Yes. And the thing that makes it a real bummer is that they are trying to pretend it's not. And what I mean by that is like, we start in the guy's office where he's eating steak and potatoes while working. And I was like, dude, give him a sandwich. Like, why has he made himself steak and potatoes? Because he's in a home. And it's like he's like cutting it with a fork and knife trying to read. It was like, that's such a silly thing to start with. And he's in his office, but his office is clearly a bedroom. There's a closet, like one of those like with what are they called? Like a folding door with like shutters. Like it's a McMansion. Like that's the thing that they're also in kind of just like a
So
he's just, his office doesn't look like an office. It looks like someone's bedroom. The shot is of him at a desk eating steak and potatoes with a fucking closet behind him.
Yep.
And it's like, the security room is like a living room, or it's a hallway where the guy's sitting on like a wooden kitchen chair and watching a CRT television. It's like, this is...
They didn't even decorate the set. So it's just like
It's just a house.
It's just a house. So there's like pictures on the wall. There's pictures on the table. It's, it.
Yeah. And it's just like framed art.
Yeah.
Of like really quaint.
And photographs of like clearly whoever's house it is family. There's like the furniture in there. They filmed it at the home of somebody who happened to own a pool table.
Yes.
So they set up the den to try to make it like they hang this black curtain over the doorway to get into the room where they all play pool, and it just looks so funny. And their little bar setup is just
it's a wooden bar. It's a bar that you can buy on Craigslist for $100.
It's a bar that your parents have at their house. It's a bar that you keep like 4 bottles of liquor behind, and there's like a bookshelf behind it, and they're trying to make it look like this high stakes bar, and they have this other which is clearly the same closed circuit TV that the security guy is watching. They just move it for the different shots, but it's crammed all the way up above the bar in one of the bookshelves, and that's like what the people at the bar are supposed to be watching, like they're watching the game being played in the next room.
This movie cost $40 to make.
It couldn't have cost much more.
Yeah. It's very, this is like, it's the glaring problem. Like when they're just sitting on like a leather sofa, and this mobster's like trying to act tough, and it's like, you're all, you're LARPing. You're filming your LARPing is what you're doing.
You're like you're hosting a murder mystery party. Like it's just so clearly somebody's house. There's
a character kills himself. A character does cocaine, and then also a character kills himself in the bathroom. The bathroom has floral wallpaper. And it's just a suburban bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you're making this movie. The first thing you do is you try to find a bar. That's the first thing you do. You can't find a bar, then you have to put in the work to decorate a house to make it look at least like a mobster's house or a crime guy house, or you immediately call attention to it. You show this suburban house, you put a fake family in it. And then you say, all right, everybody downstairs, and they leave. You pay them or something. The first thing with the like low budget filming is like a movie like Coherence. Did you see Coherence, Tom? I probably asked you this a million times.
I haven't yet. I need to.
That also takes place in a suburban house and is a low budget film. The difference is they wrote it to be that way. So like the first thing you got to do if you can't afford to film outside of this house, write a movie that takes place in a house. You know what I mean? Don't like just pretend it's not a house.
Yeah.
But that's what they do. They pretend it's not a house. So they've told us this is a 200-person tournament for $1 million. I just want to throw this out. They have one pool table. That would take, if they played for 24 hours, assuming every game play was an hour long, it would take more than a week of 24-hour playing for like. That's the amazing thing. First of all, is a 200-person tournament,
and the matches are like best of 8. Like they play a lot of games.
Yeah,
for
you're
each
right.
matchup.
So that already they have been playing this for weeks and weeks and weeks, if not months, in this single fucking house. And these people are supposed to be the best of the best. And I want to hit another big problem with this movie. So my assumption was like, okay, so this is really indie. They're trying to make this pool movie. That must mean someone in the movie can play pool. Nope. The other problem is the pool is bad.
They never show it. They never show it. They show people standing around the pool table, and then they'll show close-ups of balls going into pockets.
The same close-ups often. They will loop the same shots.
Yep.
People will miss, though, like obvious shots. And it's like, so you are the best out of 200 in this $1 million tournament, and none of you really can play pool very well. It's it's a real problem.
It is. I'm not sure why we were asked to cover this movie.
I don't know.
But it's every piece of it is just so embarrassing, I guess. Well, not every piece, because it's not. I do want to say.
I will say that this movie is pretty cringe.
I did want to say that it's not The Room. Like, it is still a movie with a plot. It is not. It is far from the worst movie I have ever seen.
Right. but that's kind of the problem with it.
Right. It's as incompetent or not incompetent, but it is as bad a movie as you can make that still tells a story.
Right.
Still tells a coherent story.
Right. I know what you're trying to say, because The Room does technically tell a coherent story. It's just really funny. Another thing that has to be noted is that several of the actors in this are actors. Not at the time, but like one of the actors goes on to be in, I think, play Crane, the character Crane in Lovecraft Country. One of them goes on to be in The Walking Dead. So I can't. The acting in this isn't good, but it's not the actor's fault, I would argue. It's very clear that they rushed it. There's no way someone could act in this environment.
There's no like blocking. It's just people standing around in rooms in a house. Yeah. Like there's no real lighting. Like the light seems to just be the lamps that are in this room in the house.
Yes. That is one of the things.
It is so.
When I was in film school, one of the first classes, I think it was a cinematography class. They did something very useful, the teacher. He was like, I want to tell you how to spot a bad low budget film. And here are the things to look for. The big one is camera. If the camera doesn't move, if it's on sticks or if it's handheld, your brain automatically knows I'm watching a cheap movie. And what I mean by that is if it's only panning, tilting, and then handheld, you know that they couldn't afford to do anything. And so like you look at a movie like Evil Dead, Sam Raimi knew that he couldn't afford a dolly. So he made one out of boards because he knew that he had to move the camera. He had to.
Yeah, that's the first thing you notice when a movie is bad or has like no budget is that the camera doesn't move, and you may not consciously notice it, but you feel it immediately. Where like, oh, this movie feels like bad.
Yes,
this movie feels like crap. Yeah,
that's one of the reasons why. The other one we already talked about, which is like you have to write a story around what your means are. Sam Raimi, going back to that, wrote a story that took place in a cabin because he knew he could get to a fucking cabin. And he knew he could do certain things there. It was hell to film that movie, but he kept it in the woods. That's why a lot of horror movies are, for example, found footage or take place in the woods or take place in a single location because they're filming around what they had. Paranormal Activity, shot in a suburban house, and it knew how to use that fact. They didn't spend any money on sound. You can tell there's a single mic in the room. There's a lot of fuzz. When one character who's farther from the camera talks, they're quieter. They didn't shoot ADR. They didn't do anything like that. They didn't.
There's some, but I don't think there's any looping within the scenes. Like I think it's all just like the narration and stuff.
Yeah. So like this is another thing you can go back and you can do this in post if you have the time. Like that's the thing is the lower budget you have, the more time you have to spend, and they didn't want to do either. You mentioned the lighting. It's not lit, right? It's all practical. This was probably shot on a digital camera, I'm guessing, because if you watched it on Tubi, like it couldn't even fill the screen I was watching. Like it was clearly shot on a format.
Yeah, it was shot in 2002. So it was shot on one of those little digital cameras. Yeah,
that like doesn't even fit your normal flat screen television anymore.
Yeah.
The props in this, like when he takes out that suitcase and handcuffs, those are plastic handcuffs.
They sure are.
Maybe,
Dave.
Yeah. That suitcase. It's like you gotta afford a fucking nice enough suitcase.
The mobster's gun that they never really let you see.
Right.
The fact that when 3 characters get shot, we don't see it.
Right. They tried to do a stylistic thing.
Yeah, they cut to different rooms of the house. They fade in and out of 3 different rooms of the house, and they didn't have a good sound effect for the gun, so it's like not immediately clear that that's what's supposed to be happening because it doesn't sound loud enough.
Right.
So it's like the three characters, and they're three major characters, or at least two of them are, rob the main character at the end and try to run off with the money. Like the mobster who's playing in the tournament, his bodyguard leaves the room after them. And then it just cuts to three static shots. Well, not static shots, but they're stationary shots of three other rooms in the house, and it just fades in and out to each shot as we hear a new gunshot. And that's how we learn that three characters have died.
Yes.
We don't see them die. We don't see them get shot. We don't see their dead bodies. That's it.
And then when they dump their bodies in a trunk, it's like, that's a pile of leaves. That is not a human that you're dumping in there.
Yeah. They're throwing three bodies into the trunk of the same sedan.
In a suburban garage.
And if you look, Dave, the car does not move when they toss each body in there, because that's a bag of leaves. That's a bag of clothing.
Detail, folks. Details. The music. So the music is clearly whatever they could get legally. There's no score, and honestly, this is kind of
there is some score. There is. Mm-hmm.
This is a movie that sort of needs it, because they keep swapping from music song to song, and there's no consistency in it, because I think it's just what music they could get. That's it.
It's almost entirely just like pop songs, like rock songs, rather than a score. And if you look at the end credits, all of the like rock songs were provided by two bands. So that's like, I suspect either somebody in the production is in those bands or like their friends or siblings or something of the, because there's so many songs. There's like 30 songs in this movie that I've never heard before.
They're trying to like fill all the silences.
So there's just constantly music playing, and it doesn't, like you said, it's just kind of whatever they could get. So it rarely matches what's happening on the screen. Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, if the idea is that it's diegetic, it's playing in the background of the scenes, that's fine. But like,
it does sound like it's like playing on a boombox somewhere.
Yeah.
Which the problem with that is, like, if this was set in a bar, that would make more sense. But it's a suburban house that they're pretending is a bar, so it just feels like someone's playing music at a house party.
Now, are they pretending it's a bar, or is it supposed to be this main character's home that he's invited these people to come play pool?
Yeah, someone later says, like, you got this cool little underground thing. They seem to imply it's supposed to be a house, but then if it is, you have to make it look nicer. You know what I mean? Because they treat it like it's like, oh, we're getting drinks, we're doing this thing. It's sort of in this, you're right, I think the intention was like, it's a house, but it's so badly put together that it feels like it's kids playing pretend bar.
Well, they didn't,
you know what I mean?
They didn't do any set deck. So it's clearly just somebody's parents' house.
Right. And so this goes into like the final thing that I keep saying, which is like, you know your limitations. And it really reminds me of like, again, film school shit, which is like, they wanted to make a Guy Ritchie film. So right away, you should know Guy Ritchie films move the camera around a lot. They have dynamic music.
Almost constantly.
Have dynamic lighting. Yeah. You can't do that. You're not making a Guy Ritchie film. You have to accept that, but they can't accept that. So they're trying to do that, but they don't have any. It's like making a horror movie, but not having like even a rubber mask or like blood. It's just like, no, you need the things to make that movie. So right away, it's just like, you either need to put actual money into this, or you need to not make it this. And if you want to make it this, then accept that you're making like an exercise and not a movie that you're going to put out to the public.
Right. It's so... I think a lot of indie films suffer from, and I mean like indie in terms of like micro budget films like this, right. When it's made, a lot of amateur films tend to have the same problem of not moving the camera. Like that's part of, I feel like that's a problem that a lot of these movies share, because it's not a thing. Like we were saying earlier, you may not like consciously notice that the camera doesn't move, but you definitely notice it. So if your only background in film is watching a lot of movies, you probably, and you're gonna, I'm gonna make a movie of my own. You probably don't understand how important moving the camera and shot choices are, because so many of these movies share the same problem of just parking the camera someplace. So all that matters is supposed to just film film the dialogue of the scene. We just need these characters visible on screen as they say their lines, and that's good. That's the shot.
Right.
But that's not how movies work. That's, it's not. So
yeah,
like I think that is a bigger issue than anything else we've said. Bigger than the acting, bigger than the lighting, bigger than the fact that it's clearly set in somebody's parents' house that they didn't even do any set decoration for. The fact that they just park the camera just to film these people saying their lines, and then that's it. That is the most noticeable thing that makes this movie feel really cheap.
Yeah. That said, like, you look at, I don't know, Clerks. I'm pretty sure, does Kevin Smith ever use a dolly in that movie? I'm not sure if he does.
No, there are instances where the writing can overcome that.
Well, that's But
so you have to be really, and I'm not going to. You have to be really fucking good. And Kevin Smith, however you feel about writing, at least at that place and time, was really great at writing jokes.
Yes, and he also knew how to get around his limitations.
Exactly.
He wrote around them. He could only shoot at night, so he wrote in.
He had an actual location that does a lot.
Yes,
like it's actually in a convenience store. It's actually in a video store. It's so like that. Yeah, it wouldn't have worked if it was just in his parents' house was lightly dressed up to make it look like a convenience store.
Exactly.
Like, he had the location, so I think it picked up the slack that the limited camera moves put down,
right. But also what he did is he did a lot of editing. When he shot a scene, he shot reverse shots. When he shot a conversation,
coverage.
He shot coverage. He shot wides. Yeah. So like if you can't move the camera in the scene, you can do things around it to make it feel more dynamic.
To keep the momentum going, yeah.
He didn't shoot a crime movie. He shot a comedy with people talking.
Yep.
A movie that doesn't require a lot of movement. Mm-hmm. And so, like, that's a big part of it as well. And this is all that. Like, I also get the feeling like, okay, the actors. He had the people he knew. Or she. I don't know who made this. I think it's a male director.
It was a man, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that checks out, considering the content.
Considering the only three female characters in the movie all make out with each other.
Yes.
And I think they all turn out they're all either fuck-ups or betrayers.
Yeah, that checks out.
Hooray.
Yeah, again, the movie itself is like, it's not worth talking about to some extent, because it's just like, it feels like LARPing. It's just like, pool is so cool. We don't know how to play it, but we think it's real cool when people play pool, and we're like tough guys.
Yeah, it's really
but they're all
embarrassing.
Like 22.
Yeah, it's real embarrassing male fantasy stuff.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is like, okay, you have a bunch of baby-faced actors. Like, there's a guy who plays a mobster, and like he didn't cut his hair. He just slicks it back, but it's like long in the back. So it's like, I don't know, you're in a movie, cut your hair. Like, go to a barber shop, get the haircut for the movie role. The director should pay for it, or the producer. And he's in a suit, and he's he's like doing an impression of Christopher from The Sopranos.
Yeah, because it's 2002.
He's speaking in an Italian accent that is not his accent. There's a few of those, isn't there? Like, I believe there's a few accents. It's like, just use your voice.
Oh man, what was his name? The shitty friend who turns out to be one of the people trying to steal his money, the guy that was the former baseball player. He puts on that's actually the guy that was in that's the actor that's had like a pretty long career.
Right.
Anyway, he puts on like generic crime accent.
Yeah. Yeah, he does. It's the accents were the thing that really made me go, oh, don't do that. It's like a children's party magician doing like tricks with fire. It's just like, nah, you shouldn't do that. Like, you're working out of your trunk. You don't have the resources to like, and that's what it is like, don't do an accent, man. Like, you're already asking a lot of us.
Yeah, don't try to juggle chainsaws. Just stick with the card tricks.
Which is, again, going back to why they're like $1 million. That reminds me of Birdemic. when he's like, I did the big deal for how much? $1 million. It's like, it's Dr. Evil. It's like a kid's view of what a lot of money is. And so the big thing I keep going back to is they wanted this to be big. They wanted it to seem like, oh, $1 million big stakes. And it's like, this would have been so much better if it was small stakes, because then you could actually justify some of the things. You could say like, okay, these are just kids because they're playing for a lot of money to them, but it's not that much money in the long run. You know what I mean? Like
certainly not in the world of underground gambling.
Right. But this person, again, it's the idea of
this movie wants us to believe that a genuine mobster shows up for this tournament.
Right.
With
and
his,
that this
with
tournament
his muscle.
is a $1 million tournament where the guy keeps the money, spoilers, behind the wooden bar, unprotected in this like shitty living room.
Well, that's the big twist. Like he whips out the case and handcuffs it to his wrist, so you think that's the money the whole movie, but it was really full of newspaper.
Yeah, it sure was.
But I do remember at the time when he whipped out the briefcase, I was like, what the fuck are you doing that for?
Yeah, it's like a briefcase that you like. Yes, I don't know why he does that. Also, it's like a briefcase that you like buy poker chips. That like comes with poker chips. You know what I mean? Like it's this metal shitty. Like it's not even waterproof. You can sort of tell.
It's a costume briefcase.
Yeah, it's all costume shit. Also, whenever they show the character, they do the freeze frame. They show their odds of winning in his file.
Mm-hmm.
Why does he have their odds of winning?
Because he loves statistics. He loves statistics.
If he loves statistics, he should know how hard it is to do a 200-person poker game with one table.
It doesn't make any sense, Dave. It's written. No. It's written by a person who doesn't understand how statistics work in relation to gambling or in relation to anything.
I guess I don't need to point out plot holes. When the guy slits his throat in the bathroom, the cop comes and then the game continues.
Yep.
There's like, what happened?
Right.
there?
The sheriff just grumbles
just take
at
away
him.
The body?
Yeah. The sheriff grumbles at him like, don't cause any more trouble. It's like a man is dead.
Right.
Like that's a substantial amount of paperwork for you, sheriff, even if he is paying you $50,000 a year.
Yeah. Yeah. That's still, there's got to be paramedics to come get the body,
You just disappear this guy?
Right. Did you remember the one transition they do where the guy walks across the screen and it makes a wipe with the body going by? It's one of the wilder things they do because I was just like, you don't do that through, like it's a Guy Ritchie edit, or it's supposed to be, but they don't do it ever again and it's not motivated. And going back to
the tone of it is playful. And it's not a playful scene. Like the man's death is not handled playfully or funny. Like it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be kind of like a gift of the Magi thing because this character is the only character who has an arc in the movie. Is a guy named Tim, and we learn that he's just lost his job, and he's broke. He's flat broke. His wife thinks he's at a conference in Tampa, like a job conference, looking for more work, but he's here betting it all on this pool tournament. He loses. Then takes one of the other players hostage to try to steal the money. He gets his ass beat by this mysterious player who turns out to be one of the thieves, I think. And then they take him into the bathroom to get cleaned up. And he's just really pathetic. And he's like, his arm got broken when they disarmed him. And he's just at the end of his rope. And so he decides to kill himself in the bathroom. But at the same time, it's intercut with shots of Alex, who's the main character, the statistician running the tournament, taking out some cash and putting it in an envelope, and he writes Tim's name on. Like he's going to give this guy money because he feels bad for him, but then the guy kills himself. So that's like the only legitimate arc that's in this movie. So like anyway, I said all that to illustrate that it is not funny. Like it's not handled in the way that like a death in a Guy Ritchie movie would be handled, where it's kind of like darkly comedic. There's nothing funny about it. And then it does this wacky little wipe when they take his body out.
Yeah.
It's such a baffling decision to make.
So weird.
They just wanted to do something that they saw in a Guy Ritchie movie and it looked cool.
Yeah.
It's like no thought to what it actually means. Like,
right. And this is, I keep mentioning film school because it just really So again, it reminded me of film school specifically during this era, and I want to talk.
I can't. It must have been that must have been brutal, Dave, going to film school during this era.
Yes, that's what I wanted to know is that 2000s. What makes that significant is that we were in an era where Tarantino in the 90s, Kevin Smith in the 90s, Spike Lee, a lot of Miramax. Where there was this Gen X filmmaking. And when you hit the 2000s, there was this feeling, at least, and I don't know, I haven't been to film school recently, so maybe this never went away, but there was this vibe that there were some people who are under the misconception that being a director was cool. That it's a cool thing to be. And I think it's like the Tarantino of it all, the Guy Ritchie of it all. That movies, art movies, indie movies were cool. And what I mean by that is like cool, like this gets me the ladies. This is popular. It's cool. And you'd always run into those people in film school. And they were people who would like, they cared more about how they looked than how the movie looked.
Right.
And I think there's always been an element of that in art. And there's been many movies lampooning that idea. Like I remember I knew someone who who did art galleries, and they would put more care into how they looked at the gallery than the actual art they'd put out. Like there's a lot of that where it's like, we just want to be cool, and they don't think about what the actual intent of the art is supposed to be, because they're starting from, I just want to be cool. And the fact of the matter is, it's not cool. That's not the right idea. Movies can be cool. People can be in careers where they go, I feel cool in this career, but you kind of have to do the work first. And you can sort of tell, or I could tell in film school, and this is coming from someone who's never made a movie. Mind you, I am not a success either. And like I said, in film school, there were movies I would help out with that were the equivalent of this for sure. I never made something like this. I never I made stuff like this in high school, but not after film school. It's just, this person clearly wanted to be cool. They wanted something that they didn't have the resources to make, and they couldn't accept that. And that's how you get stuff like Neil Breen,
right? It's like
or Tommy Wiseau.
These movies are made to. It's like they're making a movie to become famous for this, or like it's like they're trying to make a movie that's quotable, and
or they're kind of LARPing.
Yeah,
they're LARPing because they want to be Tarantino, but they don't want to do the work or the practical work that requires.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Reservoir Dogs. Where does that take place? A factory, a hideout, and he's hiding a lot of budget that way. But he had enough budget to make a movie, and Tarantino, for all the things that bothers me about him, he knows how to direct. He knows what that takes.
There's enough, like, you don't see the heist in that movie. You just hear about it. Right. And so for a movie about a heist gone wrong that you never even see, it's like, that sounds horrible, but like, he had enough of a budget, and he's enough of a, he's a good enough writer and director that he's able to, like, all we need to see is their desperate escape where Tim Roth shoots that lady. Like, that's, and he's in the bleeding, shot in the stomach, screaming in the back of a car. Like, that's dynamic enough, and that tells us enough of the story. And he's still hiding a lot of budget that way, because the inside of a car doesn't cost anything to shoot, really.
Right.
But it's,
and again,
it's just like, it's
starting from like, I want to make a movie myself. What can I make? And it's someone sitting down and being like, oh, it's going to be like a mob movie and there's shootouts. It's like, no, you have a suburban house, write Skinamarink, write an $8,000 or $15,000 movie, write something that you can film and not start with, I want it to be this cool thing. And I think the pool kind of is the microcosm for it, because they wanted to make a cool pool movie. None of them knew how to play pool. And it's like, well, that's where you start, right? You say, wait, do we have anybody who can play pool? Oh, we don't? Maybe we shouldn't make a pool movie then.
Yeah. Like, even even a movie like Reservoir Dogs, in terms of like, if you're looking at that as your prototype for like, well, I could write a movie that with, as long as the writing's rock solid, because like, oh, what I love about Reservoir Dogs is all the cool dialogue, and what I love about Snatch and Lock, Stock is all the cool dialogue. So like, if I could just write it, I can write through the limitations. And it's like, well, part of the problem is you don't realize that like Reservoir Dogs still costs like a couple $1 million.
Right.
Like Snatch is like a $10 million film.
Right.
Like they still had to do a lot of difficult work raising money even to get this very independent movie put together that still didn't have enough money to shoot the actual heist that's at the center of it.
Right. So I don't know, man. You want to make this movie? Set it in a hotel. Rent a hotel. Make it poker. Make it poker instead of pool.
Yeah.
Write the hotel into it. It's underground. It's in a seedy hotel. You can start with the main character walking in and like trying to fix up the room to make it, like again, right around it, around the, like you could still technically make this movie, but to try to make $1 million stakes pool tournament in a suburban house, it's just, you're immediately like, it doesn't matter at that point how well you film it. It's not going to be good. It's not going to be believable.
Like they have 3 characters get shot and they don't even film that. Like it's weird watching this movie, it's weird what it seems like the director was insistent upon including. Like a couple of slow motion shots and then that slow motion to sped up shit that like Guy Ritchie was doing at the time, and then obviously Zack Snyder got very famous for it. Right. It's I don't know.
They might as well be making a fantasy film. That's the thing. They might as well be saying, I want to make a Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings style film. Yeah. I have $8. Yeah. It's like, then you don't make that. Just don't make it.
You can't make that movie. You need a different idea. Or you need to approach it in a different way. Or you need to raise that money. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what this is. It's like, it's just, I don't know. For me, it's a product of a very specific time in my life.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, where it's like this, I'm guessing this person, I don't even know if this person went to film school. I'm guessing this is right out of or during film school. And they're just like, I want it all. And so like, I don't know, nothing against the people behind this. I'm sure, I hope they got a career later, I hope they figured it out. But like, this movie was put out into the world. Presented to me as a movie, and it's not that.
No, it's not. It's just, I don't know. And
I have one compliment for it.
Yeah, it's not the worst movie I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say the credits, decent beginning credits. I mean, it's all shitty on digital, but like the shot of the pool table and the balls going around and it sort of wipes the names. Mm-hmm. Good idea for credit sequence.
Sure. The acting, wasn't good, but it wasn't hideous.
Right. Again, it's like
these are actual.
No way the actors,
like half the cast went on to have at least careers as working actors.
Yeah, and like that guy who's in The Walking Dead has to sit in a hallway and pretend he's in a security room, and it's like, what are you going to do with that? You only get like one shot, one take. I'm guessing.
I'm sure most of these were just only did as many takes as it took the actors to say the lines correctly.
Yep.
The story is it's easy to follow. Like events connect in a logical way, which I mean, it sounds like the barest minimum of compliment to make, but like if you watch a lot of independent, low budget, micro budget movies, just look at The Room. Like it's like The Room.
Yeah.
All sorts of weird, unconnected, bizarre shit will just occur in The Room. This, at least, like, if you could change not a thing about this script and just put more money into it, and it would come out looking. You would never be able to tell that it was like the initial attempt at this was to just film it in somebody's parents' house, if that makes sense. Like
that makes sense.
Like it's enough of a quote unquote real movie that you can. It's still a story that is very easy to follow, and I
still wouldn't have liked the dialogue, but yes, you're right. It's there's that. I do have one other sort of compliment. There is an attempt in this movie. So one of the other things I forgot to say that is a sign of a low budget film is if everything's in focus. You can tell that's low budget. If every shot is completely in focus, that means that they're using the lens that came with the camera, and it's just a consumer camera. They knew that because a couple times they tried. Not all, mind you, most of the shots are still everything's in focus. But when they shot the pool, they tried to do a rack focus. When they break, they failed. But they tried.
They did try. So, I noticed that. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a couple times where they try to do rack focuses, but they don't have the right equipment because like it really. So like the cue ball starts in focus and then it racks as it breaks. The problem is the cue ball is in the background, so you don't notice. So the shot just looks out of focus because it takes up. They didn't frame it right, but they knew that like focus pulling is a part of a movie. It's a big part. Like another one of those things you might not notice, but watch any small budget versus a big budget, you realize like big budget films, tight focus. That's a big part of it. They're using good lenses. This didn't have that ability.
Yeah, but you're right.
But they tried.
At least it shows that they were aware of the concept of intent.
Yes. Just a little bit.
Unlike the wipe. The body wipe.
Unlike the wipe. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would argue, if they knew something they wanted to do a cool rack focus because rack focuses are one of the coolest things you learn in film school. And so they clearly wanted to do one. But their eyes were bigger than the stomach again because doing a rack focus on a pool ball hitting flying across is a really hard thing to do.
That is. Yeah.
Yeah. And they really wanted to do it. So, but to me, I'm like, that's cute. You should have done that in the regular dialogue scenes. Like, don't spend a day trying to get that rack focus. Just try to shoot the dialogue scenes in ways that look good. You know? Light your movie.
Yeah, do something.
Yeah, do something. I don't know. Skinamarink it. And Blair Witch had come out. They're I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great example of making the film that you have with your budget.
Yeah, exactly. You have the woods, you have a few actors, and you have shitty cameras.
Yeah.
Lean into it. Found footage.
Yeah. I don't have. We've talked for long enough about this movie.
Yeah, we sure did. So that's Behind the Nine. Check it out today.
Behind the Nine. You don't need to watch it, but you can easily.
You could watch it, but I wouldn't.
I wouldn't.
That's the final thing. This movie is 78 minutes long. Mm-hmm. I could have sworn it took me a day to watch this movie.
Yeah.
Time stopped.
It drags.
Yeah,
it's, I don't know. There, we did it.
We did it. Thank you to Why Don't You Take a Flying Fuck at the Moon.
At the Moon.
Hope you weren't part of this movie.
Yeah.
I don't know why you found it though. And thanks for listening, everybody. This was through our Patreon, patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. You go on there. There's exclusive podcasts like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and Spiel Boys. We watch movies with our patrons every Friday night. There's all sorts of tiers on there. There's a Discord community as well. Very nice people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Full of lovely people like yourself, potentially.
Yeah.
We also have a store. Head over to gamefullyunemployed.com where you can find a link to our Teespring store. We have all kinds of cool original artwork and designs you can get on t-shirts, mugs, stickers, posters, all sorts of things. So, slap your pool hustling peepers on them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Slap your parents'
rods.
house. Yeah, your rods.
In your parents' house.
In your
cocaine.
fucking parents' house.
Acting big and tough. Oh, Christ.
It is so clearly a McMansion from the 90s and aughts. It's just...
Yes. It is never not that.
Yeah.
It's never not that.
Which...
Mm-hmm.
So is Paranormal Activity, but they actually recognized... Anyway.
Yeah. Sigh. Big sigh.
Big sigh.